As many of you know, I'm Dr. S, and unfortunately, even though our clinic is closed for routine eye care, we want you to know that we still care about your health, and that includes your mental health. And so with all the stir craziness of being stuck at home, we're going to hopefully be posting about each week just a short little fun educational video about the eyes. So for today's video, as I was watering the beautiful flowers, I was thinking a lot of people are out in their gardens probably wondering, how do we even see color? What is it that allows us to see the beautiful yellows, the purples, and the reds of the roses that will soon come in? Well, did you know that the reason colors even exist is because light is made of waves, and there are different wavelengths, and each wavelength is essentially a different color. Let me show you. Now I don't have red, so I'm going to use black instead of red. Red has the longest length of light, or wavelength. So notice here that the length is pretty long from here to here. So that's the wavelength of red. Now green is a little bit shorter. It's a medium wavelength. So notice there are more waves in there because it's shorter between here. And blue has the shortest wavelength of all. So here's blue light. So that's what makes up each different color. But how do we see each different wavelength? Well, let me show you a little simple drawing of an eye. So this is the side of an eye. And this is the back of the eye. This is what we see with. It's called the retina. And the retina has 3 different kinds of cells that detect color. And those cells are called cones. Now they don't actually look like cones, but just so that you remember, I'm just going to draw out little cones here. And there's 3 different kinds of cones at the back of the eye. There are red cones. There are green cones. And guess what? There's blue cones. And that's pretty much it. So how do we see all the different colors with just 3 different kinds of cones or color detecting cells? Well, it all comes down to the different length of light, like we talked about, that each one is activated by. Red cones, which is black here, only detects the longer wavelengths. Green cones will detect the medium wavelengths, and blue cones will detect the shorter wavelengths. And what happens is when a certain kind of cone is activated, it will send the signal through the optic nerve to the brain. There's a pretty bad brain here. And it tells our brain what color it sees. So if, let's say that an equal number of the red cones and the blue cones are activated, then our brain will tell us, hey, that object is purple. So that's how we see all the different colors. And just a little side note on that, there's 2 kinds of colorblind people. Now the rarer kind of color blindness, which is true color blindness, is when one of these types of cones is completely missing. Okay, so of course they can't detect any of those wavelengths, so they only have the 2 kinds. They can only detect colors from these 2 kinds of cones. But most colorblind people are only color deficient, is what it's called, where they have all 3, but one of them is just messed up. It detects the wrong length. So what happens if our red cones are detecting green waves? Well, we can't tell a difference between red and green. And so that's one of the most common causes of color blindness. But that's getting a little bit off topic. So we've talked about all the different colors of the rainbow, but we haven't talked about white light. How does our brain see white light? Well, white light is actually made of every single wavelength of light. And so what happens is if all these cones are activated equally at the same time, it tells our brain, hey, that's white light. Don't believe me? Well, there's actually a tool called a prism that will separate white light into each different wavelength. Now I'm going to show you how to make your own prism from your own backyard. Now this fun little experiment only takes a couple of things. First, you need a sunny day. You also need a piece of paper, a small mirror like this one, and last, a Tupperware that's clear and that's about halfway filled with water. Now you want to place first the mirror into the water so that the water comes about halfway up the mirror, and it's important that the mirror is facing the sun. Now what we're going to do, it's simple. We're going to take the piece of paper, and the sun is going to reflect off the prism that we're making from the water, and it's going to split, like we talked about, the light into the different colors. And all this is because each wavelength of light travels at a different speed. And the further out you go, the more separated it gets. And we can see those different colors now because of those cone photoreceptors in the eye, like we talked about. There's a lot involved in seeing color, isn't there? More than you thought, I bet. Well, that's all for now. Until next time.